Unit 3, receiving and storing foods. So the key points that you're going to look at through this unit are receiving and storing procedures, food and chemical storage, manual handling, and safe storage. So damaged or spoiled foods. Anytime that you receive a can or any other product that you see is damaged, you need to make sure it either goes in the garbage or is returned to where it was delivered from. Okay, there's a few different examples in here. So first we have cracked eggs. Now cracked eggs, you may think that everything else in the container is okay, other than that one or two cracked. But those eggs have cracked, and the inside of the eggs, the whites or the yolks, may have contaminated the other eggs. And this is only an issue because if you crack the eggs, now anything that was on the shell could potentially be cross-contaminated into the food people are eating. The container of pickles there, well, it may still be sealed as cloudy. Cloudy is always indicative of bacteria or pathogen growth, so that can of pickles should go directly in the garbage. The cheese is covered in mold, which means there's probably mold growing throughout the cheese, so it's not safe to serve to people. The cans are dented, and we've talked about how dented cans can cause issues with metal corrosion. There's not a can pictured here that looks like it's swollen, but if you ever come across a can that's swollen, it should go directly into the garbage. A can that is swollen is indicative of a can that contains botulism. And the botulism is a very nasty virus that can cause anyone to become very sick, and it's not going to be killed off in heat. And finally, that bag of flour has a hole in the bottom, which doesn't seem like a huge issue, but it could have been contaminated with insects or rodents. Okay. Unapproved sources. So a real case of raw oysters. Guests who fell ill with norovirus at a rugby match were promised premium oysters on the menu. Instead, the caterer served banned raw imports. An ordering mix-up by the caterers is believed to have led to the mass poisoning. So an unapproved source, remember, is a source that has not been government approved, which means that it doesn't have the government regulations that you want your food sources to have. Proper storage and shelving. We need to make sure that we're not keeping spoiled or outdated food. It's no good to anyone. We need to group like foods together. Ensure an adequate amount of shelving so that we're not overcrowding. When you overcrowd shelves, you tend to lose the food that you could be cooking. Do not overstock. When you overstock, you're going to end up with lots and lots of spoilage, which means lots and lots of things you're going to throw out. Wrap cheese and store away from food with odors. Cheese is very susceptible to taking on odors, so if you leave it in the fridge with something that's kind of stinky, that means your cheese is going to take on the scents that are in the fridge. And keep food 15 centimeters or 6 inches off the floor. And this is because rodents and insects like to crawl along around the floor, and if you keep them high enough up off the floor, those insects and rodents won't be able to get to them. Okay. Proper storage and shelving. You need to store ready-to-eat food such as raw vegetables and cooked meat above uncooked meat. So this allows us to make sure that the uncooked meat that could have harmful bacteria on it does not drip juices onto the already prepared food, which may not be cooked again or at all. We need to use shelves that allow for airflow and circulation, and we need to make sure that we wrap foods. Just another barrier of protection against cross-contamination. So, improper storage, a real case. After sipping on a mixed drink at a restaurant, a woman ended up in the hospital with a burned mouth and stomach and severe bleeding. A dishwasher had handed the bartender a cleaner instead of the sugar she was looking for to rim the glass. So this tells me that the cleaner was being stored in a spot where it shouldn't have been, because if you're looking for sugar in one spot, you shouldn't be able to find cleaner in it as well. Okay, recommended storage times. So anything that's being refrigerated can usually stay in the refrigerator for 1 to 7 days, depending on the food. And when it's in the refrigerator, we want it between that 0 and 4 degrees Celsius. Frozen food needs to stay at minus 18 degrees Celsius and can stay frozen for 1 to 6 months, depending on the food. Dry food should be stored at 10 degrees Celsius to 21 degrees Celsius for between 4 to 24 months, depending on the food. Now we can leave dry food in the danger zone because it's dry. Bacteria requires moisture in order to grow and thrive, so the dry food will be safe. Freezer temperatures. We need to make sure that your freezer is at minus 18 degrees Celsius to make sure that food is frozen to a proper state where bacteria will no longer grow. Damaged dry goods. If you ever come across damaged dry goods, it's important to clean up any spills and remove the damaged bags. The damaged bags and spills will attract insects and rodents, which could damage more food and can make people sick. Damaged glass and cans. So the cans that we see, we've talked about already, they're damaged. The food inside them is no good. The pickles there are cloudy, which means there's bacteria growing on them. Also, if you ever come across a sealed jar that hasn't been opened, but that pop top at the top is popped up, you also shouldn't be eating that. That means there's enough oxygen in the can to allow bacteria to grow. Different selection of equipment. So there's 4 different carts there that can help us move equipment. The first one here is just a dolly cart that helps us move around things. This helps us move boxes, so you can stack the boxes on top and then tip it up and move the boxes around. This right here is a pallet jack, which helps us move large pallets around. And then in the back we have a simple cart that will also help us move things around. If a cart is available, make sure that you're using it, simply because it reduces strain on your body and will help you be sure not to hurt yourself if you're making many trips. So safe lifting techniques, make sure you use equipment if it's available. Keep your load close to your body. This just means that your center of gravity won't move around too much, and your arms won't get tired if you're holding it away from yourself. Avoid stooping, twisting, or obstructive lifts. So if you have to stoop funny, you're going to end up standing up and hurting your back. If you have to twist, that's very bad for your back. You could end up hurting something very bad. Or obstructed lifts. So if you're trying to lift around something, make sure that you move things instead of trying to lift around. Face the direction of the lift. So you have to turn your body physically towards what you're lifting before you pick it up. And then turn your feet away from where you lifted in order to move. Bend your knees and lift with your legs and not with your back. Limit lifts to the range from between your knees and shoulder height. Okay, so try not to lift anything from right off the floor. Also try not to lift anything from way too far off the ground or off a shelf. If you have to lift something off a high shelf, make sure that you're using a ladder or something sturdy to get yourself close enough to lift it down. Use secure handles. Wear closed-toed sturdy shoes with non-slip soles. Simply, if your toes are covered and you drop something, it has a layer of shoe to protect your toes before you get hurt. And share heavy loads with a partner. Anything that's too heavy for you to carry by yourself, make sure you find someone else to help you. Okay, so this is just a demonstration of how to lift objects safely. So you need to get close, bend with your knees, and get a good grip. Stand up using your legs, not your back. And pivot using your feet instead of your back. So you have to physically lift up your feet and turn them rather than turning just from your back.